The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, March 27th, Wednesday, March 28th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Cariboo region, on top of the melting snow of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong, nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia. We are on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. We are also all over the internet. You can find us live on periscope.tv. You can also find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We are on TalkStream Live. You can tune us in on TuneIn and download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Do a little shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online, dealing with all our news of the strange, weird, and odd. We got great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. David Sereda is a director and editor known for Dan Aykroyd's Unplugged on UFOs, Quantum Communication and UFO, The Greatest Story Ever Denied, Part 2. His research, which he bases out of the southeast Kootenay region of British Columbia, allows him to concentrate on his studies that have taken him from looking into Area 51 all the way to the Great Pyramids. David's first aspiration in life was to be an astronaut. In 1968, he and a friend witnessed a UFO along with hundreds of others. After that experience, David grew up as a UFO enthusiast, never living in doubt of the phenomena that has swept the world since Roswell in 1947. David Sereda, it's been a long time since we've had you on Spaced Out Radio. What a pleasure to have you back. How have you been, my friend?
Well, it's been a long journey because I've got two little daughters running around now, and I'm 57 this summer, so I'm really way behind at being a daddy. That's all I can tell you. But it's, having children brings another level of mysticism, because what happens is your children start reporting to you their experiences. And, when I was a kid growing up I was born in Edmonton, Alberta, moved to Berkeley, California in about 1964 or 5. And my four brothers and I and my parents, lived there. And that's where I saw my first UFO in 1968. And, childhood is a magical time because we're so open and we're so impressionable at these young ages. I really find over the years, I have met handfuls of people mysteriously at the age of 7, they report seeing a UFO, right in the backyard, hovering above the house, or, it seems to be an age that the ETs seem to tune into. They seem to tune into our children. And I've had my own daughter, who's now 7.5, tell me, Daddy, there's a flying saucer hovering right above the lake. I can see it right now, and I look out there and I don't see anything. And that's where, for years I've talked about the invisibility of UFOs, and that a lot of people, they'll take a picture and a UFO will show up in the photography on the digital camera or even film. And there's even pictures of extraterrestrials that have showed up on people's vacation photographs, a being standing there that wasn't there during the time of the photography. And I, have noted in my film Evidence the Case for NASA UFOs that NASA's cameras were scouring the invisible wavelengths of light from very sensitive areas of infrared and also into the near and far ultraviolet. So where I'm at now with my research is that I believe that the staff of Moses, which actually gets handed all the way down to Jesus and then to Merlin and King Arthur, was an antenna to the gods or to the heavens. And I came up with this theory, and that it was actually an antenna, because when you can see when a staff is raised above the ground, it's like a positive emitter antenna, and when you set it back in the earth, it's like a negative receiver. And the way radio works is that any two oscillators at the same frequency, regardless of distance on the planet, are at the very least, speed of light communication with one another. And there are many ways to make an oscillator or a transmitter receiver that operate at the same frequencies. And an antenna or staff is definitely one of the ways to do that. And it's one of the earliest ways we would transmit and receive radio signals. So the height of an antenna, or its length, is equal to half a wavelength. And a full wavelength, the way you calculate an electromagnetic frequency is you take the speed of light divided by a wavelength. And so therefore, I was on this search for the origin of Moses' staff, where he got it from. And the book of Exodus tells us that Moses was trained as a baby, raised by the Pharaoh's daughter, in all things Egyptian. So he was an Egyptian-trained Hebrew that understood everything about Egyptian mathematics. And the inch that we have today is the foundation of all measurements in the ancient world, because the Babylonians and the Egyptians used the inch, and they didn't use the centimeter, they didn't use the meter, they didn't use a yard, they used an inch. And the mystery here, this is where it gets really deep, is when you're looking for the length of the staff of Moses, which I'm going to show you how it gets translated all the way down to Jesus and the 12 disciples. But it's almost an impossible mission to find its exact length, because there's very few clues in scriptures that can tell us the significance of what the measure was. And where the real problem lies is in the same way the three major religions don't get along, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, because Muhammad also carried the staff, and Muhammad equated the staff to the resurrection body, is that because we don't get along as religions, we decided that each religion would have a different length for a biblical cubit. And it's not accurate to just say, okay, we don't want to have the same cubit as you because we're a different religion. You have to find the exact measurement of the cubit to know the length of the staff, and therefore to calculate the frequency that Moses and his predecessor Isis and others. I mean, the staff migrates all over the Middle East to the Persian kings. It goes all the way to the Americas, and I'm going to show you evidence of it in the early Americas, in the First Nations, the Native Americans. It goes into Europe. It goes into Stonehenge. The Druids probably predate what we believe are the Egyptians today, and the staff goes all the way back to them. So the staff is so important in the ability of primitive human beings to communicate with the gods of the super crystal spaceships. If we go to the biblical book of Enoch, we see in the visions of Enoch, who's the first prophet in the Bible. So you're looking at over 6,000 years ago. You're looking at a period that is probably after the Great Flood, which is really the beginning of a new world. So the Great Flood and or the Ice Age. It's hard to say for sure if the two of them coincide. But the staff acts as an antenna for the prophet or prophetess to communicate with the gods in their craft. And I've identified over the years 3 major arcana of UFOs, and the gods are the super enlightened, super luminous beings, don't fly in crafts that are powered by machinery, although they're physical craft. They appear by the descriptions of Enoch to be made of crystal. And remember that crystals or gems are vibrating inside of your computer and your cell phone in all of the transistors and all the crystal oscillators, and they're all contain quartz. And it's the quartz that's responsible for all the gates and the billions of transistors in an Intel chip. It's the quartz that's responsible for generating the frequencies that we communicate with. And therefore, the idea of a crystalline spaceship in Enoch is not far-fetched if you understand the power of the properties of gems and materials. And then you go all the way forward to Ezekiel and Ezekiel's wills. You can see the angel comes down to give Ezekiel the new dimensions with a new staff for the new temple, for the new temple for the Holy of Holies, and also the new Ark of the Covenant. And the angel doesn't change the dimensions, but the angel gives us a clue. He says a cubit is a cubit and a hand breadth. And all the previous scholars, they completely miss this. They use what's called the short cubit. So when they're trying to measure the Ark of the Covenant, and the Ark of the Covenant is key to the length of the staff of Moses and Aaron, because the Bible tells us in 2 places that the length of the staff corresponds to the Ark of the Covenant. And this is the real clue here, because once you understand that what was known as the Bakal Isu Isu meaning the staff of Bakal Isu, the staff of Jesus. And you know that Jesus got the staff from his father, who got it from his predecessors that go all the way back to Moses. And Moses got it from an earlier source. In fact, the stories, and I'm not going to mention, all the scriptures because that's going to get too anal to get the exact scriptures, but I have a PDF booklet for people who are interested in the staff. They can email me after the show and get a copy of it, but that has where the sources of what I'm telling you are. But the legend of Excalibur, the sword of King Arthur, being placed in a stone that no one could draw the sword out of the stone, is the same as the legend of the predecessor prophets of Moses, from Abraham to going to the Garden of Eden, and the first prophet is Enoch. So I believe Enoch would have been the first staff holder, and the staff antenna that Enoch used, according to the most ancient sources, was a gem-powered staff with 10 sapphires in it. So we make a staff available for people with 10 sapphires in it, which has a coil and is made of brass, and it's very beautiful, and it's the correct length. So that staff was placed into a stone, and no one could draw it out of the stone except for Moses. So the staff goes back to the Garden of Eden, and then it must have gone to Enoch, because every prophet becomes a staff holder. And therefore, the mythology of King Arthur pulling the sword out of the stone was more likely the staff of Jesus gets passed on to Merlin, who then places it in the stone, and Arthur pulls it out of the stone. And the sword is the measure of the staff, because all things if you go to the book of Ezekiel, the angel shows him a new staff, which is a new height than the previous staff, but he never changes the dimensions of the Holy of Holies.
David, I want to cut you off right there. How did you start figuring this out? Because, this is heavy that religious scholars have been trying to figure out for years.
Exactly. Well, it's a great question, because the first thing I did is that if you can't find the definitive royal cubit inch, because the Egyptians used the inch, and their inch is 0.00106 different than ours, which is a thousandth of an inch different. You can't see that with the eye. Then basically our inch is the same as theirs when you're looking at small units of measure, like a staff. So I realized that where everyone is drawing upon is these two rulers that the Egyptians, archaeologists discovered, and they varied between 20.6 and 20.8 inches per royal cubit. And because they varied ever so slightly, there became a disagreement about what was the absolute royal cubit inch. And a royal cubit inch is the biblical cubit, because it's based on the symbol of elbow to fingertip and handbreadth, according to the angel in Ezekiel. And most scholars miss that, because then in Ezekiel, that elbow to fingertip plus a handbreadth is called a cubit. But that's not a common cubit. That's called a long cubit or a royal cubit. So the Hebrews today believe the length of the long cubit is 20.4 inches. And that's an interesting number, but it's not correct, because the place that I found the accuracy is in the Great Pyramid itself. If we look at Peter Le Mesurier's book, The Great Pyramid Decoded, the great French mathematician, we found consistently in over 16 places, 2 royal cubits is expressed as 41.21 inches. And when you're measuring smaller stuff, like 41 inches, it's the same as our inch. You can't see the difference, because the thousandths of an inch difference, and then the 6 is in the 100,000 position, you can't see the difference until you're measuring longer forms. So therefore, when we're looking for the staff, it's the inch. There's no difference. And so therefore, if we know the Bible tells us in the books of Moses that the staff lay in front of the ark. And then in the Christian manuscript, in the New Testament, we have evidence that the staff of Aaron, and the staff of Aaron, Moses' brother, there were 12 staffs for the 12 tribes of Israel, and they're all measured against the staff of Moses and Aaron are the same. So they lay inside of the ark. So therefore, if you know the length of the ark is 2.5 cubits, but that's not a short cubit, that's a real cubit, the holy cubit. See, the common builder cubit was for the lowly people. So there's no way God is dealing with the short cubit, because that's for the common layperson. And we have pictograms in ancient Egypt of the goddess Isis holding up the staff. And we can see Isis and Horus holding up the staff. And when we come to my measurement of the staff, which is based on the true royal cubit inch, because we have 16 places where 41.21 is 2 royal cubits, and it doesn't vary. See, the rulers varied, but the measurements in the pyramid didn't vary. The 2 royal cubits is always 41.21 inches. So therefore, 20.605, which is in the acceptable range between 20.6 and 20.8, is the true royal cubit inch. And therefore, that is the cubit inch that the prophet Ezekiel is using, because the way we're going to know is that when we measure the ark, 2.5 royal cubits long for the ark, which is the length of the staff, because we know it lay inside, is 51.5125 inches. Now, the 5151 is Great Pyramid angle. That's the angle of the Great Pyramid. So that's a mystical number. Stonehenge sits at 51 degrees 1 minute north latitude. So we know the 51 is the master number. We know there's 50 states in the United States, and the 51st state is hidden. We know the 51 degrees and 51 minute line is just north of London, where all the crop circles appeared in this. A degree is like, a full degree on the Earth is like 67 miles. So you have this huge swath in a single degree. And that's where the majority of the crop circles appeared, is on the 51 degree line. And then you have Coral or Shell Castle in England, and that is also 51 degrees 1 minute. And then we have the story in... you see, the staff is not something you just carry. It is an antenna to communicate to the gods and the goddesses in the craft, in the light craft, the super beings. Now, those UFOs and those beings power their craft with the power of consciousness, whereas the lesser developed beings use propulsion systems that are more mechanical, that work on vibrations. And then when you get down to the warfaring beings, they're still using high-powered thruster rocket engine type of craft, and they're using nuclear propulsion drive systems. And the ones that can travel the fastest and the farthest are the light being craft. And what I believe the staff is, when I see, if I take the height of the Ark of the Covenant according to my measure, 51.5125, and I multiply that by, because there's 12 staff holders, there's 12 tribes of Israel. And when I multiply 51.5125 inches, right, I'll do it right now on my calculator, times the 12 staffs of Israel, you get the golden ratio number. You get 51.5125 inches is the length of the ark. And you multiply that times 12 tribes, because there's a staff for each of the 12, it's the number 618.15. Now, a golden ratio, which is what the pyramid angle is born out of, if we take a golden ratio of a rectangle of the shorter side, A, times the longer side, 1.618, 0339887, see, the zero was already in the 1,000 position. So for anything smaller, you can't see past that. So when you see 12 staffs adding up to the 618 number, That's golden ratio, and that's pyramid again, because if you take a golden rectangle, 1 to 1.618, and you cut it in half down the middle, and you make a pyramid inside of it, the slope angles on that pyramid is 51 degrees and 51 minutes, and there your staff is 51.51 inches long, 0.25. So, and then you take 12 staffs and you get golden ratio number. So that's incredible, because that's how the pyramid was built, with golden rectangles. That's how the 4 51 degrees and 51 minute sides are built with that number.
Right.
And then so you see that this is most likely the true length of the staff. And if you have the staff is made correctly with the 10 sapphires, which we make ours available to people with the 10 sapphires. Sapphires are the throne of God in Ezekiel and Enoch. God sat on a sapphire throne on this crystal-wheeled spacecraft, and therefore the vibration, NASA uses sapphires in what are called masers. And masers will use rubies or sapphires. And masers purify microwaves for radio astronomy. They give you a cleaner signal. Isn't that interesting to put those in a staff? Now, because a staff is conductive, it's not made of wood, because we know the staff of Moses was not made of wood. It would have been made of a metal with the 10 sapphires there. So therefore, the body is an electrical system. We can measure voltage on the body. So therefore, when you touch a conductor rod, it calibrates your nervous system at the frequency of the wavelength of the staff. And so if you have 12 tribe members in Israel holding the staffs, they all calibrate to the same frequency. And that means the way radio works today is if you have 2 or more people tuned into the same frequency, they all receive the message, because you're all at the same frequency. So if I send out the baseball game or the news on the radio at AM amplitude modulated, 623 hertz, then everybody at that frequency can hear the game. So this is the way the 12 tribes members all got calibrated at the same frequency, because they were all staff holders of the same exact length staff. Now, I'm looking at a pictogram right now in my book that people can get, just by emailing me at my email, davidsereda@hotmail.com. And she's holding the staff up, and it's coming up to her shoulder. Now, I put the length of the staff mentioned next to my wife, and it comes perfectly to the same place in the pictogram of the goddess Isis. And it comes right under my armpit myself. And so therefore, this gets really interesting. What happens in the Christian Bible, moving way forward in the New Testament, in the Bible book of Mark chapter 6, Jesus tells the disciples that when I send you out to preach the Gospels, you can forget everything, but do not forget your staff. It says, save a staff only. You can forget everything, but save a staff only, which means he put absolute paramount importance on 12 disciples, just like the 12 tribes of Israel, which means each one of them is calibrated at the 5151, which is pyramid number, because each staff is 51.5125 inches long.
David, I just want to jump in here for 1 second, because I'm reading a lot of comments from the chat rooms where, and I think even myself, not to sound asinine or a little confused, but what is all of this for? Why are you researching?
What all this is?
Thank you.
What all this is for is, we know the first prophet of the Bible, Enoch, made contact with this supreme being in a crystal spaceship who lands on the ground, whose face is so bright and powerful you can't look at this being. The staff was what calibrated the prophet to vibrate at that frequency. So you walked everywhere with the staff. You tended sheep. You did everything until your nervous system was tuned to the frequency that the staff represented. Then you move all the way forward to the time of Moses, and Moses produces all of the miracles, the parting of the sea, the tons of powerful manifestations of the staff, the plagues that were cast upon the Egyptians, so that the the Hebrews could become free from their slavery. He did everything by communicating using the antenna in his hand, the staff. Then you come all the way forward to the time of Jesus, and he does the same thing. You see, he got the staff from his father, because his father Joseph was one of the 12 staff holders of the 12 tribes in his time. We know that from scriptures that are lost manuscripts. So when you come to the time of Jesus, he then sends out the 12 with staffs themselves, and yet Christians today don't know this. It's right in their Bible. Why did he do it? Because the staff keeps you calibrated at the correct frequency, so therefore you're in real communication. You're not just guessing. Some people might think that the way the prophets prayed was just by using their voice and closing their eyes, but we have evidence that even Muhammad always carried the staff, and that he equated it to the resurrection. So what I'm saying is the superluminal craft, the craft of the supreme God, which is a crystalline craft, a massive circular wheels within wheels crystalline craft with a sapphire gem throne, communicated with the prophets because the angels gave them the instructions to have the staff in their own hands at the correct length. And now I'm offering this technology to the world, that people can either make their own staff, because I teach you how to do it, or you can buy the much higher quality ones that we make, and then train people. They do a training to learn how to calibrate their nervous systems and their energy field with these frequencies, so that you can start to have your own experiences. That's what this is about. For me, seeing a UFO with my own eyes is like, that's great. Then I made contact with them in my dreams. But I don't just want to see flying saucers in people's videos. I want to know who's up there, who's higher than we are, who's more powerful than the human race, and how do you connect and make contact so that we're not alone and we're not just sitting on this planet with these rulers who are destroying the whole place. I want to feel a connection, a real connection, not just a belief system. And that's what I believe the staff was for. And now we have it. We've decoded its length. We've decoded the materials it's made out of. And we now know, like my staffs actually plug in to a frequency generator, and you put the correct frequencies in it, and then you've got a real powerful tool to use. So what are some of the questions?
Well, I'm just wondering, in regards to this, is this all to try and combine that maybe we came from an extraterrestrial outlook in life, so extraterrestrials created us, extraterrestrials are our God? Is that what you're trying to say here? Well,
extraterrestrial means beyond Earth. Terra is Earth. Extra means beyond Earth, right? So when my experience of meditating for over 40 years every day is I've been able to make real contact, real in-person contact. And I've done a lot of different meditation techniques, but I've had direct encounters with Christ shining like thousands of our suns. I've also been able to, with my own eyes, open my eyes and see beings from different star systems. I've been able to calibrate my body at the wavelength and frequencies using NASA data on different star systems and make contact with those beings. Because I feel as a human being to be locked on a tiny rock in this massive universe, that each galaxy is bigger than the ancients believed the heavens were, that I don't just want to sit here and not find out the answers. I don't want to just read a book about somebody else's experience. I want to know how to duplicate this experience, and so that you can train other people to have an experience, so you can know you're not alone in the universe. Do I believe one person created the whole universe? There's no way I can know the answer to that. I mean, that's at this point, the universe is too big. It's the idea of the heavens that are described in any of the world's religions, including the Bhagavad Gita for the Hindus, the Christian Bible, the ancient Hebrews. Everybody's vision of heaven is tiny compared to the size of this universe. So So I don't know the answer to that. The biggest question there is who created the whole thing. But I do believe the evidence of being a human being, the very fact that we die, that we get disease, that we start out young and beautiful and then we get older, and that we're not one of us is going to escape death, that it's up to us individually to find out the answers of where we're going to go next. And I like to have a preview to that. I like to know before I die what is going to happen, not waiting till the last minute and putting my soul in the hands of, of just the wind, just think, oh, we'll find out what happens when we die, so why worry about it now? That's what a lot of people will say to me. But I'll say, no, you've got to take responsibility for your soul, but just the same way you take responsibility for your life in this world. So the UFO question, to me, is way bigger than just some gray aliens coming from Zeta Reticuli. I mean, it's a way bigger question than that. Because the human race and the human form obviously has an engineer, somebody who built this. In the same way we're getting to the point of creating artificial intelligence that will eventually take away most of people's jobs on this planet, means that what does that tell you right there? The fact that that's our future. That artificial intelligence is going to be able to make your car, it's going to be able to clean it's going to be able to build most of your house. It's going to be able to pick your order at Amazon. So who's going to have a job in the future? I mean, maybe if the government wakes up, we might realize that if AI is going to do everything, that maybe our minds can be used for a higher purpose. But if they're not going to pay anybody any money and just watch us all die because we don't have any money, then maybe that's what they're going to do. We don't know, but we, as a civilization right now, are on the precipice of artificial intelligence changing all of our jobs, everything that everybody does. And I think that's an opportunity to apply human inventiveness to the UFO question and how their craft actually operate. And the first step is making contact. And I've been able to do that. I've been able to meet them holographically and have them stand right in front of me and see them with my eyes open. But they're holograms. You can put your hand right through them. But yet they're aware on their end that they are a hologram and they're seeing me and they're teaching me. And I actually believe holograms are probably what a lot of the biblical, manifestations were. That the higher intelligence in the universe doesn't physically have to come to another planet in order to view that planet and to experience it, that they can bilocate, trilocate, quadrilocate, and send in multiple digital copies of themselves out, so that if I'm sitting in my position now and I want to see what's happening on Series B, that I can actually send a digital copy of myself, but I can see through that copy. Just like I'm looking through my eyes right now. There is a way to do this because I've seen them in front of me doing this, and I know that they're not physical. I've seen them with my eyes open, and they've talked to me and told me things that turned out to be 100% accurate, but they're not physically there. They don't need water. They don't breathe our air. And I am told that the last episode of Star Wars, which I haven't seen yet, this is one of the biggest revelations in the new Star Wars, is the holographic. And so that means even UFOs can imagine a craft that is a hologram, but it's an intelligent hologram. It can gather information and send the information back to another star system, but there's no pilot in the craft. And when you would see it as a UFO in the sky, but it's just gathering information, but it's not even physical. See, we believe we have to send a rocket ship to Mars to look closely at the surface of Mars. But eventually we're going to find out how to build a hologram that does the exact same thing, but it's not even physical. And that's the first step. You see, the staff is the antenna to the calibrating the person's nervous system, their psyche, at a particular wavelength. And a wavelength is a frequency. The wavelength is the frequency. So therefore, even the temple of the Holy of Holies cube in Israel is a frequency. It's a resonance. And that resonance means if you meditate and sit in that space of that cube, you're going to calibrate at the frequency of that inner space. The King's Chamber and the Great Pyramid, the Queen's Chamber, the Great Pyramid are highly insulated with massive amounts of insulating rock material. Therefore, they have the ability to trap a frequency inside of that cavity. And therefore, if you're inside of that cavity, you're going to have an experience at the frequency of the wavelength of that structure. And that is what I believe the pyramids were very, very useful for within the chambers and within the frequencies. I've calculated all the frequencies based on the square wavelength of the Great Pyramid from underneath the soil all the way up the sides to the top. And I have all those numbers, taking the speed of light divided by all those wavelengths. And it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing stuff to experience those frequencies yourself and find out what they do to you, like how they change your consciousness and what they give you access to. See, we believe our little laptops and our iPods, and you watch people in Vancouver. We live out in Nelson, and we're in Vancouver right now. My two kids and my wife and I, and people don't even talk to each other anymore. They just got their head in their device, walking around, bumping into things, and they're texting people, and they're calling people, and they're texting people, and they're looking at stuff on the internet. You see, we're already AI. Our brains are interfacing with technology. We don't even interface with each other that much anymore. We're in our device. Our device is sending microwave frequencies into our brains, and therefore we're starting to become calibrated electrically through our electrical nervous system at the frequency of our devices. So we're already part AI right now. We've agreed to do this.
Yeah, and that has been on a personal level because, people feel that they need to, have those devices in order to be a part of a more modern society, which, is kind of following the path of the sheep, if you want to call it that way. But with this research that you are combining, do you believe then that all of these frequencies and all of these, what's the word I'm looking for? Let's say man's history from the pyramids on up was all built with an extraterrestrial presence to maybe make things more welcome for them?
Well, that's a great, thesis right there, that when they would arrive to visit, the pyramids were, the Great Pyramid of Egypt is, I've done so much math on it in the last 10 years. I've taken our understanding of the pyramid to a completely different level. We've decoded the most perfect melodic music scale with a total of 3 scales and 120 tones per scale, 360 tones that have no distortion. Whereas our music scale, A, B, C, D, F, G, the flats and the sharps, distort. You can do a tone test. I have a video on YouTube. You can see I test the 432 scale, which distorts, the 444 scale distorts, the one we use, the 440s, A440 distorts. Solfeggio distorts after the 4th note, but the pyramid scale is perfect. So my wife and I wrote this book called God's Great Pyramid, which proves the math in the Great Pyramid is the same as the math in all of the structures that the prophets were told to build. And they got their instructions from the angels who represented God, the God of the old world. And there are 2 gods in the old world that are very clear in the Gnostic Christian Gospels. There is a warfaring, jealous, angry God, and then there's a very benevolent, kind, and loving God. But they both get kind of mixed into one character. But you can clearly see from the arrival of Gnostic Christianity, there's a clear separation Jesus makes, where he tells the disciples in the canonized Bible that many of the Jews are worshiping the wrong God. You know, you're worshiping the angry, murdering God, the ones that sends people into battle, and he's very jealous, very angry. And that's not Jesus' God. Jesus is very clear in the Gospels and makes the distinction. So when I say the word God, like the actual definition in the Old Testament of the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton name of God, it just means I am that I am. It's the supreme universal self that resides everywhere. It's non-local, that defies all distances, that is not a physical person that sends people into battle. It does have a voice, but it doesn't appear in an image, which is why the Hebrews don't believe in worshiping any, graven or carven images of God, because God is actually a universal self. But the ancient Egyptian Atenist, the Aten, was exactly the same. The Atenists got away from worshiping deities like Sekhmet, the cat god you had all these different deity gods. And the Atenists were very much the same as the Hebrews. In fact, some scholars say they're exactly the same people. But the Hebrews today and the Jews today don't know that they actually came from the Aten, because they changed the name. And when you change the name, you think you have a different God. But the definition means I am that I am. And then you can go to the Hindu system and you can see the Paramatman means the same thing. It's a universal self that exists everywhere in the universe. It's non-local. It's instantaneous communication, faster than light. It's a divine presence that's everywhere, and it can speak to you, but it doesn't have a human form, right? So then when you look at that as a definition, you can say, well, that's very Buddhist, because the Buddhists kind of have the same thing. They don't believe the Buddha was God, not at all. They believe the Buddha was kind of like the definition of what we call a prophet in this tradition. And the Buddhists also used staffs. So the presence for me of finding, you got to find the answer yourself. I've been meditating every day for 40 years. I've met Christ in person, blazing like thousands of sun. He stood right in front of me, but that's my experience. So
I have to stop you right there. You said you met Jesus Christ in person. Not a lot of people in today's day and age can say that has happened. You have to explain this.
Well, this happened. See, I was a tree planter in Canada for 23 years. And this was in 1994, so a long time ago. For some reason, the government said I owed $1,000, and I didn't, I didn't have a place to live. I lived in my tents in the tree planting camps, and I didn't even have anywhere to keep receipts for my expenses. So they said I owed $1,000, and I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't even write off any of my expenses for the last 20 years. And I should get all that money back. But nevertheless, they wiped out my entire bank account that year. They took all my earnings. Like, in today's dollars, it would be $50,000. And I almost died. And I had to pitch a tent on my father's land, which was in Topanga, California, pretty high in the mountains. And it snowed there in the winter. And he had no room in the house. I had no money. They took all my money. I had to survive the winter. And this rainstorm came one night that was torrential, and my tent was filling up with water. This was like mid-October. And I just said, I've had it. Like, just take me, God. I said, just take me. And I started to get hypothermia. I left my body. I hovered above the oak trees in the dark and the pouring rain, and this giant crucifix made of granite appeared, and it was this angelic sound was coming from the crucifix. And beneath it was a baptismal font, and in the shape of a cross. So in my spirit body, I fell into the water, got baptized directly by Christ, obviously, with the sign of the cross. And then I was taken above the rain clouds, and millions of tiny little balls of light came rushing together from all over, in every direction of the universe. and manifested the body of Christ in front of me. And it was so powerful. He was brighter than thousands of our suns. I instantly looked at his face and I fell on the ground. I was instantly humbled. You couldn't look at the face for more than 1 second or you would die. And then I would look again. Oh my God! I look down, and he's so holy and so beautiful, and blinding love, blinding ecstasy, more ecstasy than you can possibly imagine even exists. More love, more peace, more beauty, more grace, more. Every mathematical formula in the creation of the universe was rippling off of his body. And he came up to me, and I just held his feet. And just looking at his feet was more fulfilling by billions of times than any human experience. And then I would look at his face and look down, look at his face and look down. And he spoke. And in those years, I wrote a book called Face to Face with Jesus Christ, which is a combination of 3 different meetings I had with him over the years that were very similar. Where it's just like Enoch. You see, if you go to the book of Enoch, Enoch says, in a dream, winds assisted me and elevated me, and he flew in the dream. So Enoch's vision of the big craft of God landing on the ground, he comes before the face of God on the throne, and the angel Gabriel and Michael are at his side, and Enoch falls to the ground. You can't look at the face of God. And this was the same for Christ. I was unable to look. You cannot stand up. You're instantly thrown to the ground in humility, but it's wonderful. You're filled with blinding love and bliss and unnameable qualities in God that we don't even have in our language. It's all the glory of the supremacy of this being. And the things he said are just utterly, utterly astounding. Every sentence he spoke, each word had millions and millions of implications to the word. And so I wrote a book about those 3 experiences, and within the instantaneity of seeing him, within 3 days, I could open my eyes in the middle of the night, and I could see the dead. I could see star beings. I could see beings from other planets perfectly clearly, just opening my eyes, and they're right in front of me. I'd met Arcturian beings from Arcturus. I've met beings from all over, and this ability to see them peak as a trained professional photographer, I became interested in invisibility and how was my eye and my brain able to see what others couldn't see. And that's when I became interested in the NASA photography with Martin Stubbs and the space shuttle video footage, and I studied the cameras. I was able to talk to scientists at NASA and find out what kind of cameras they were using and how they were able to see invisible light. And then I made the film Evidence the Case for NASA UFOs with Dan Aykroyd at the front of the film. And that all, when I was making that film, I had so much of my own experience with my own eyes about invisibility, but then I started studying how NASA could see what we don't see, and how they used iridium-coated mirrors and mirror telescope to see more invisible light, and how they used they would take a video camera and equip it with super special CCDs so they could see ultraviolet near and ultraviolet far light. And that's where a lot of the UFOs were showing up. They were showing up in these invisible spectra of light. So I got more and more into invisibility and more into when these experiences occurred, when there's a person standing in front of me and they have, different beings will have more or less light in their aura around their form. But I saw them in all color, head to toe. Their feet never touched the ground of our planet. I've seen First Nations, Native Americans. I've seen it even in the middle of the day. I've even seen in the middle of the day them sitting on the edge of the bed. But right before my first daughter was born, Alira, all these psychics in Sedona, and Sedona is full of psychics, and people pay a lot of money to see these psychics. They were saying, you're going to have a girl. You're going to have a boy. And so my wife named the child Jade, Blue, and we both came up with the name. But I said, Crystal, there's a little girl beside the bed, and she kind of looks like you. She looks like she's about 6 years old, and she's got the brightest light around her. more light. Lyra had more light around her as a spirit, and this is at 5 months pregnant. But she said, well, that must be our next child, Lyra, because we're having a boy. All the psychics said we're having a boy. And I said, well, we might be having a girl. And sure enough, we had a girl. And when I look at Lyra today, she's 7 years old, and that's the girl beside the bed. Now, that was the end. That was, I had this ability for 14 years. Well, from 1994 to 2005, whatever that is. And when Lyra was born, it was the end. The power was taken away from me. I didn't need to see them anymore. God was showing me, you've seen everything. You've seen Jesus Christ. There's nobody that compares to him. I've seen other enlightened masters from other religions. I've seen beings from different star systems that don't even look human at all. They're spherical or elliptical kind of luminous bodies with amazing colors in them. But there's nobody that I've met that compares as even one grain of sand to the being that Christ is. And the being that Christ is probably one and the same as the God that appeared to Enoch. And the God that appeared to Enoch is known as the Ancient of Days. And there's a saying, this is in the canonized Bible. Jesus says, before Abraham was, I am. So Jesus is saying that he is the God before even the time of Abraham. He's saying he is the God that appeared to the prophets. But
David, I got to get you to hold on right there, okay? Because we do have to step out for our first break of the night. What an incredible show so far with David Sereda. He's going to be with us one more hour here on Spaced Out Radio as we talk the pyramids. We talk UFOs, ascension, consciousness, and so much more. We're going to get into, hopefully, a little Area 51 as well. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at UFOseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, John Tenney is back, the paranormal weirdo. We're going to get into a bunch of paranormal stories with John and see where it goes. It's always an entertaining show when John's on. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Syzygy. Syzygy is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. We are live on Periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. We are also on Facebook. Give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show on Instagram. Follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store our archives. It is youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We would appreciate that. We are on TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website, of course, is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight we are talking everything from consciousness, pyramids, UFOs, aliens, ET contact. David Sereda is with us tonight. He has been in this field for a couple of decades now and has looked at every source of information trying to bring to light what is happening with mankind when it comes to our ET brethren. David, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. So, first, because we're at the top of the hour, I just want to give out my website. Is my name, David Sereda, SEREDA.net, and my email is davidsereda@hotmail.com for people who are interested in learning about my new project, the Staff of the Gods. The Staff of Gods, really, because it goes from very ancient times. We see evidence of the staff in ancient Egypt. We see it in ancient Persia. The Persian kings all had the staff. And it goes all the way forward to the time of Christ and Jesus telling the 12 disciples to not forget their staffs when they go out, because that's how they all calibrate at the same frequency as each other. And it's very important to be at the correct frequencies. Like when you understand how our modern music scale distorts when you do a scale-up test. You get a tone audio software. You punch in all of the frequencies of all the notes, A, B, C, D, F, G, and the flats and sharps. You start at the bottom, you turn on the tone, and then you hit the next note up, the next note up, the next note up, and you leave them on. And what you're listening for is wobbling, which is distortion between the notes. And I tested the famous 432 scale, which distorted really badly. 432 may be a beneficial frequency on its own, but it is not part of a music scale that is harmonic. The most actually harmonic natural rhythms are golden ratio tones. And that's another scale that I discovered, is the golden ratio scale. And that's why we know that when you add 12 of the staffs together, the staff of Moses, Isis, Jesus, Merlin, and Arthur moving forward, you come to that golden number, 618. And so therefore, because the Great Pyramid is angle of 51 degrees and 51 minutes is made out of a golden ratio rectangle, and therefore you understand the length of the Ark of the Covenant is 51.5125 inches. We know the length of the staff because it's proportional to the Ark. And therefore you also come to another revelation, and that is that the Holy of Holies, which is the cube in Solomon's temple, and the home to the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant, we know from very rare scriptures, there's only two sources of information, that the staff of Aaron and Moses and the 12 tribes were probably charged up with frequencies inside of the Ark. So I determined what the frequencies that the Ark of the Covenant would generate. And part of the training that people can have if they make their own staff or get one of ours is how to connect your staff to get it charged up at the correct frequencies. So even though if you make your own, you can take the training to do that. But let's go back, because I want to make a point clear that it's not been made very well in ufology. If we look in all the world religions, I mean, I've studied and read hundreds of Buddhist manuscripts, hundreds, the entire Bhagavad Gita in the Hindu manuscripts. And what I've found in Christianity, Judaism, in all these world religions, is there are three major arcana of realms in this universe. You have warfaring, suffering hell realms, which are real places. You don't have to die to go to hell. There are hell realms right on this earth right now, and they're created by ignorance. They're created by bad politics. They're created by war and just our general belief systems. But on other planets, and there are actual planets where the entire planet is in a constant state of struggle and war and competition. The next major realm you'll see in all the world religions is the temporary heaven. Like, for example, at the end of the book of Revelation in the Christian Bible, the majority of humans that are saved live in a paradise earth, a new earth that lasts for 1,000 years of peace. And after the 1,000 years of peace, basically all hell breaks loose one more time. But that is a temporary heaven abode. And the Buddhists have the same thing. They're known as Pure Lands for bodhisattvas, are great beings that take people out of the suffering realms for a while, and they live on these planets that are like a temporary paradise for 1,000, 10,000 years, and then they come back into suffering realms. So they have the same thing. And then you go into the Hindu system and you'll see the same thing. You'll see paradise planets. And the Hindu system, they have lokas, are great worlds like Hiranya Loka, Krishna Loka, are planets where super enlightened beings live. Now, in the Christian system, the 144,000 at the end of the book of Revelation are people that become so illuminated and they become actual saints. They don't live in the 1,000-year peace, the temporary heaven. They have permanent access to the much higher heavens than the paradise earth. So you have these three major arcana. You have the super illuminated light being realms of what are super gods and even goddesses, and then you have beneath those you have these paradise realms, which there are a lot of immense physical pleasures where you don't see those in the higher realms because the pleasure shifts from more physical based pleasures to the pleasure of the presence of the light itself. And then you get into the conflict warfaring realms. And when you look at Earth, in all honesty, it is a planet that has had a history of war. And that is because we all don't know how to come to peace with each other. So we spend most of our wealth in any nation today will spend most of their wealth on their military. And they won't spend that wealth on anywhere near what they spend on military, on space exploration and treating, human beings with respect and health and fairness. They tend to be very competitive. So when you look at the UFO sightings throughout the world and the history of UFO sightings, you can see who you're dealing with. You can see, and I'll give you an example. Right now, there was a case it was in the mid to late 60s. It was in Zaytun, Egypt. There were these light craft that appeared above the Coptic Christian churches, and the light craft didn't come down on the ground, and then the Virgin Mary appeared in this holographic, luminous body that hovered above the church, and there were 1 million people who saw this. And they took black and white photographs, and you can see pictures of the light craft in the sky that resemble, there are a total of 9 levels of the angelic kingdom. And when you come to the 7th level of angels, which is 3 down from the top, you see thrones. And thrones are actual they're consciousness-powered thrones that transport God and the angels around. But they're actual angels, but they're thrones. So there are different descriptions of what they look like, but some of the pictures that were taken in the 60s in Egypt show descriptions that look pretty similar, like even like a flying giant dove or possibly a winged horse. You'll see descriptions of the Prophet Muhammad flying on such a creature apparently flew through the 7 levels of heaven. And you'll see that also in Zaytun, Egypt, in the year 2000 in the town of Assia. This was reported on ABC World News. This same thing happened, but they got color photographs of these super bright, luminous spheres in the sky above the churches where the holographic, luminous body of Mary appears. Now, Muslims were seeing her in the year 2000. Christians, millions of people saw her. That went on for several years. And even though ABC News reported it, and so did NBC News, not many people noticed. Now, those craft are the thrones that transported the God in the visions of Ezekiel. And if you go back to Enoch, he describes it was a dream, but it can appear as a dream because you're seeing something that you don't normally see. So we don't know if Enoch's vision was something he saw with his eyes and it was dream-like, or whether it was a dream he had at nighttime, and his vision became prophetic. So, but then you come to the next level of UFOs, and there are a lot of cases of what I'm going to describe next, because this next level of UFOs, the paradise planets, they're not concerned with war. They're more interested in pleasures of sensuality, sexuality, food. Their bodies are perfectly beautiful, like the Roman descriptions of the early Greek and Roman gods and goddesses. And their bodies can live for tens of thousands of years in this perfect state. And I've seen many accounts of UFOs where people will see this with their eyes. They see a craft come close, and they'll see a blonde and man and woman that are young, that are naked in their flying saucer, and they make love and they fly around in their flying saucers like this, and they find places of paradise to enjoy the beauties of life and nature. And there are so many cases that fit the description of the demigod goddess realms, where there are pleasure-based beings that are not concerned about war and competitiveness. They live for a very long time. Now, when I was in India, I did a retreat with the Dalai Lama, because I've done a lot of Buddhist-based meditation in my life, and the Dalai Lama was telling everybody. I mean, there were thousands of people there, and he was telling everybody that if you should meet one of these gods or goddesses in their craft, they will appear like so much more advanced than humans, and not to worship them as supreme god or beings, but just to understand they fit into the realm of the demigods. And so the Buddhists all know about the demigods, and they do appear in their craft on Earth from time to time. But they're generally not interested. They're not going to land on the White House lawn and meet the president, because they're not interested in war. We are a planet that is very unevolved, because we spend most of our money on the military, because we don't get along. We don't understand the process of attaining peace. And therefore, we fall into the lowest category of UFOs, which is the warfaring and weaponized craft systems. And of all the cases of ufology I've studied, and we all have access to, even through the abduction cases of John Mack and Roger Lear and the implant technology used, we don't see that many cases at all where UFOs have used any type of weapon other than a technology to disable our nuclear missiles. We don't see a case where they're interested in overtly using weapons to counteract our military, but there are UFO cases where we see evidence that they have the ability to disarm us. to turn off our weapons. And therefore, we might interpret that as an act of hostility, because if they can turn off all of our missiles, our feeling would be they could then take over the planet. So, but there's no cases of ETs actually making a war with us. But that has been our fear from the beginning, that if we invite them here, like Stephen Hawking said recently, and incidentally, Stephen Hawking died on Einstein's birthday, and that wasn't even in the press, but that's his birthday. He was afraid of us sending messages out into space because we might attract somebody to take our planet from us. Now, the velocity of speed of each of the main three realms of UFOs is also proportional to the intelligence of the universe, because the warfaring ETs can't travel very far. They can't jump star systems. And once you reach the ability that you can jump star systems, you become less interested in taking somebody's planet, because there are so many empty planets where you could reside and mine and build civilizations. And there's no need to take Earth from the humans, because the Creator made endless billions of them. So the idea that we have the only planet that can sustain life and somebody's going to steal it from us, that's utter nonsense. There is a possibility that Mars is kind of is a medium station where different ETs and even the dark side of the moon use as a base to visit and observe our planet, and they're able to observe and even be on our planet undetected. And that's because of their ability to cloak and become invisible, and also because our planet is so huge. Most of the natural realms of our planet, the ocean and mountainous regions, have nobody living in them. So therefore, they could reside with their technology in our mountains, use high temperature lasers, and carve out, caverns and build whole, dwellings for themselves in the high mountainous regions, and give themselves the temperatures and the resources they need to survive. And we would never even know. But see, when you look at those three realms, the speed of the craft of the warfaring ones is very slow in comparison to the pleasure gods and the paradise gods. And that's the paradise Earth. That's the new paradise Earth that humans will inherit at the end of the Bible. The humans that are technically good. And the ones that become enlightened get access. And there's very few of those. In the history of the world, it's only in the thousands of humans that attain their true light body activation, and they become light beings. They're no longer interested in physical sensations. And those humans are the super saints. And I believe of all religions. I don't believe any one religion has the authority over that. But those are the three realms. And the craft of the gods, the super beings, can move anywhere in the universe at infinite velocities. And they don't use a physical energy source to move. And that gets into a really advanced subject. But the power of consciousness has already been proven mathematically by William Tiller to be far beyond gamma rays. And gamma rays are the greatest power, physical power, we can see using our understandings of energy and physics today. So Tiller has proven that consciousness operates beyond the gamma spectrum, and therefore it's the most powerful. But that consciousness is only accessible to the super
right
beings.
David,
Yeah.
I want to ask you about consciousness, because I just attended UFOCon 2018 in San Francisco this past weekend, and listening to Grant Cameron and Melinda Leslie talk, the big talk around the UFO field right now that the government is trying to figure out, allegedly, is the consciousness factor of how these craft are controlled, by going as far as trying to find people who say they have flown alleged craft and their experiences with it. Where does consciousness in your research come into play regarding ET experiences?
Well, firstly, I've done a lot of studies on the voltage and the current of the human nervous system and seeing how we relate to electricity in general. How does consciousness relate to electromagnetic fields and magnetic fields? And at Dartmouth College, they proved what fringe scientists had already proved, and that is the human nervous system, heart and brain, has an electromagnetic field and therefore a magnetic field. And any system that has a magnetic field can be altered by frequencies. So therefore, consciousness can be shifted with frequencies. And one of the things I've done with my vortex energy coils is I've been able to you can put it under your bed, and I can take NASA data on the radius of a distant star like Pleiades or Sirius. NASA has the radius of 5 Pleiadian suns, and once you have the radius of a star, you can calculate its frequencies. And so then I make those frequencies, and they emit through the coil, and people are having real experiences with that star system and beings from that star system. And we, in consciousness, we actually dream at the same frequency, therefore wavelength of Earth. So the Tesla-Schumann resonance of Earth is 7.83 hertz, and that changes at the equator. It's about 7.5 hertz, and the wavelength gets shorter as you get near the poles. But in general, that's where rapid eye movement occurs, is in the theta bandwidth, which is the frequency of our planet. So therefore, other ETs would dream at the frequencies of their stars and their planets, proportional to their consciousness. And so that's one of the technologies I offer, is to give people systems and give them frequencies so that they can magnetically tune their nervous system to a target and remote view that target through consciousness. But when you get into what Tiller's research was, William Tiller's was, in my film Quantum Communication, they did tests on human consciousness and found that, for example, they would have the intention of a meditator to raise the pH of water in a glass of water 6,000 or 7,000 miles away from the person. And because they couldn't get a person to hold that positive thought, to raise the pH of the water for a long period of time, they stored the thought in what's called an IIED. It's a device. And therefore, regardless of the distance and regardless of the barriers, they would put the emitter, the IID, behind, concrete and rock and mountain. And, a lot of concrete will block radio waves. They'll block microwaves. And enough concrete and distance will block even X-rays. But what Tiller found is that consciousness didn't seem to care about barriers. So therefore, its frequency or wavelength was so small that he detected it was beyond the gamma ray spectrum, meaning even smaller in wavelength. And when you convert electromagnetic wavelengths back into energy, the higher the frequency of the wave, the conversion produces more power. So a gamma ray burst in the universe is more powerful than anything. X-rays a little bit, less powerful than that. And then you get into ultraviolet rays, less powerful than that. And then you get into violet, the color violet, all of the colorful rays that we see. And then you get all the way down into infrared, TV, radio, and microwaves, and all the way down, right? So the real power in the universe appears to be beyond the gamma ray spectrum, is where consciousness operates. So when you understand that if a being becomes coherent, meaning highly focused, and their brain can tune to these wavelengths beyond the gamma ray spectrum, which most humans can do, it's just that what Tiller found is we can't hold it for very long, like only a few seconds. So he's saying that if the human mind could become highly focused, it has enough power to move spacecraft way faster than the speed of light, physical craft. It's just that it doesn't know how to be coherent in the consciousness, right? So what this proves is that the high-powered angelic craft, of course, those beings are super coherent, that's how they're powering their craft. And that's how they move at superluminal speeds. Whereas the more chaotic brain and mind that doesn't seem to know how to become focused and single, and therefore not coherent, doesn't have very much power. But it does, human thought is powerful only if you can hold the thought of what you want to manifest. And what I found over the years is if you're not truly in love with the thought, like let's say you have the thought that you want to make contact with a certain star group, and it's your heart's desire. I believe if you're really focused on it, and you used some of my magnetic field vortex energy coils, for example, under your bed, you're gonna make contact. But the staff, which we started out with, was a tool that calibrated consciousness to a particular wavelength and frequency that this super god used. And it's also possible that Moses' staff, because it's in perfect proportion to the Great Pyramid, because it has the same number. The pyramid is 51 degrees and 51 minutes slope angle. And the capstone base of the Great Pyramid's wavelength is 5.151 megahertz. I took the speed of light divided by the unfinished platform of the Great Pyramid, and the speed of light divided by that square wavelength is 5.151 megahertz. That's the same number as the slope angle. And you need to know the speed of light to know to end the pyramid's base at that exact spot, at that height of a pyramid, to produce that frequency. So therefore, these frequencies are the key to tuning consciousness to a precise place. And if you're wrong and you have the wrong frequency, like our music scale or some distorted music scale, really bad music scale, you're going to start vibrating in the completely wrong place, and you're probably going to meet some really messed up beings, right? So that's why I found the math is key. There's a reason the prophets, like let's go to Noah's Ark, supposedly a boat, but actually we know now it wasn't a boat. So God says, make the ark 300 cubits long. Well, if I take 300 cubits, you're not going to believe this, times the 20.605 cubit inch that I found in the Great Pyramid, it equals the 61815 number. It's 6,181.5 inches. Now, guess what? That's golden ratio number. Now divide that by 12 inches per foot, and they apparently didn't have feet back then, but they did have the 12 tribes of Israel.
David,
it's 515.125 feet. It's the same length as the Ark of the Covenant, but in feet. 5151.
I get that, but how does that tie into consciousness and the way
consciousness operates at a frequency, Dave? What I'm saying is, every one of these measurements that the angels gave to the prophets to give to humans is a frequency for consciousness. So if you made the temple or the ark the wrong size and you didn't use the right cubit inch, it wasn't going to resonate at the right frequency to adjust your consciousness so that you could have the direct experience that you need to have to meet God. And have your own experience instead of literature. See, the book of Enoch tells us this in Enoch, that the losing direct communication with God, the fall of the human race, is that our faith would have to be confirmed with the ink and pen. The ink and pen was inferior. It was delusional. So all religions of the world argue with each other because we write with ink and pen a different interpretation of the same scripture. See, the angel in the book of Enoch says, you're going to fall and you're going to have to use the ink and pen for knowledge, because you're not going to have real knowledge anymore, which is direct contact with God, because you lost the ability to communicate with God because you're not at the right frequency. So consciousness has to be proportional to wavelength, which is the dimensions of your temple, has to be perfect. And if your temple's wrong, it's going to fall to the ground. And most of the temples, the measurement was off, and they fell to the ground, just like the prophet said. If you don't make this temple perfect. So Ezekiel comes after the second temple and says, here, I'm going to give you the measurements again. You're going to make the Holy of Holies 20 by 20 by 20. And 20 by 20 by 20 times 20.605 inches is the 4121. And that is the most famous number in the Great Pyramid because it appears in over 14 places. So that ties the Holy of Holies to the Great Pyramid, which proves the Great Pyramid is really God's temple. And when they found the pyramids, Dave, they found no hieroglyphs. There were no hieroglyphs anywhere inside of the Great Pyramid. It is not an Egyptian monument. It is a monument from the previous epoch before the Great Flood and probably the Ice Age. So when the dust settled and the new people emerged, their royal cubits varied because they didn't know what a royal cubit was because they were studying the Great Pyramid's dimensions to try to figure out what a perfect royal cubit inch was. And it was all there all along. It was the royal cubit inch I use is confirmed exactly the same in 15 places or more inside of the Great Pyramid. So that means Noah's Ark, the boat, supposedly, is 515.125 feet, and the Ark of the Covenant is 51.5125 inches. And then the Great Pyramid slope angle is 51 degrees and 51 minutes, and therefore you have 50 states in the United States, and the 51st is hidden, and Area 51, there you go, the same number. So why did Area 51 get its number? And that's because what I'm telling you is code. Why is Stonehenge sitting at 51 degrees in 1 minute? Why are all the crop circles in England appearing on either side of the 51 degrees and 51 minute line? So it's because it's a harmonic. And the music scale I discovered in the Great Pyramid is the 5.1 is your C note is in the middle of the scale, and it's perfect. No distortion in the pyramid music scale. It doesn't matter how many octaves I go up and down, it's always perfect. So whoever designed it had to be the most intelligent being. Had to be the most intelligent being that this earth has ever known. And that's why I believe Moses' staff, Moses' staff, which becomes Jesus' staff, and King Arthur's sword, which is his staff, has to be that length, because if you have an antenna that's proportional to the Great Pyramid, then it draws on its power. And my final theory on the Great Pyramid and the staff is that Moses' staff was powered by the Great Pyramid itself, because their wavelengths are so proportional and so harmonically resonant that they resonate together as a set. So when the pyramid was still working at the time of Moses, because nobody had penetrated it, it was Napoleon's armies, I think, who were the first Europeans to bash the walls down and go inside and start opening things up, that they found there's no hieroglyphs in this thing. It's not Egyptian. It has all the dimensions and measurement of the God, the perfect God of the ancient world. And the warfaring God that got mixed in with that is a separate being. Jesus addresses this in the canonized Gospels, and he addresses it in the Gnostic Gospels. So this is a perfectly harmonic structure. And even the Chichen Itza in Central America, which I visited, the stairs are 45 degrees, but the slope angles are in the 51 degree range. Depending on the settling of the earth, the four sides vary, but they're very close to the 51 degree mark. And so they would have known the same secret about the 5-1. See, that's where Area 51 gets its name. So I believe that I'm trailing in the footsteps of some very great Masonic masters who engineered the United States to have 50 states, and the 51st state is hidden as the District of Columbia. and the Area 51 because they've known about the 5-1 harmonic secret for a very, very long time. And it's so profound to work and calibrate consciousness at the correct frequencies. So I really urge people, I have made these staffs so affordable. If you make your own, it's $111 to take my course on how to make it and how to work with it. And if you have money, you can get the much better one, which, you know, for a limited time is with the 10 sapphires is $2,000. It's really stunning looking staff that you can work with. And these staffs plug into a signal generator, and I train you how to charge them up with the correct frequency so that you can hold them and work with them and calibrate your nervous system so that you can have your own experience of what these frequencies mean. What does it mean to tune consciousness to the correct frequency? Now, a lot of the abductee cases of people getting overtaken by dark ETs that want to manipulate you and put a computer chip implant in you so they can track you like a whale, that is a much lower calibration of ETs. These are ETs that are probably studying the human race, that are probably concerned about why we become so destructive to our ecology and each other. I mean, any intelligent ET who looks at this planet can see there's a lot of good human beings here. There's a lot of real, heartfelt, resonant human beings here. But the people in power, what they've done here is in just the last 100 years is utterly, utterly destructive. And you just can't go down this path. You can't keep going down this path. This planet will be finished if we keep going down this path.
So with Area 51 and all of the alleged happenings that have happened there, David, in regards to the mathematics and the past and everything you've put together, are we still seeing in today's mode of Area 51 it being as secretive with all of the technologies and potential alien contact hiding out there?
Well, you see, there are ETs in the lower category, the warfaring ETs, and the ETs that are studying our DNA for the purpose of possibly mixing their DNA with ours so they can eventually take over Earth. I think there are ETs in Area 51 that they've captured that have, malevolent intentions, but they're not going to use weapons against us. They're going to do it in a much more clandestine way, and that's kind of a takeover of our DNA. And this gets really advanced. There's a physicist scientist. He's a virologist. His name is Luc Montagnier. He's one of the discoverers of the AIDS virus. He wins the Nobel Prize, even though that virus was probably created in a lab. And he finds out that human DNA can receive and transmit radio frequencies. And that is so stunning, and he presents this evidence to a panel of other Nobel Prize winners, and they are so outraged because, you see, if you admit to the public, and Luc Montagnier has admitted this, that your DNA is receptive to frequencies, it means the frequencies they're transmitting through the internet, 150,000 microwave towers in the United States, is all a mind control web. It's a trap. And so everybody's brains are vibrating at the wrong frequency because they've got you hooked in. I had a guy buy one of my wands who worked for one of the biggest satellite companies in the world, and he said he knows for a fact they're running the internet on an exact frequency that they know is disruptive to the human organism. And it will cause cancer, and it will cause disruptions and mental illness and everything. So what I'm saying is be in control of the frequencies, because Luc Montagnier has proved this. He's a Nobel Prize winner and a virologist, which means he studies viruses, and he has proven that DNA receives and transmits radio frequencies. So all these radio frequencies going into your brain through your devices they're manipulating your consciousness, and it happens so consistently and so slowly over the last 10 years. you don't even know you've been usurped. You've been taken over by this machine called the internet. It's already hijacked your brain. And the only way to get out is to learn the frequencies that I have found in the Holy of Holies, the Great Pyramid of God. It's really the Great Pyramid of God. And all the other sacred structures I've found on the earth are all wavelengths. And so you can retrain your nervous system with one of these staffs and put the correct frequencies to recalibrate you back into your true light body self. But whereas right now, I believe the human race is already half artificial intelligence. So that the transmitters, all these microwave towers, are pretty much, it's almost like the movie with George Clooney, was it called Wonderland or something like that, where the signal is being transmitted from a major source that is putting everybody's minds into this particular state of belief. You see, the internet is so powerful that, you know, we can show you real footage of a real flying saucer and you wouldn't know if it's real or not, because you live in a holographic awareness. You can say that's fake footage or fake news, and then everyone will say, oh, it's fake news because somebody said it's fake news. But I actually am showing you real footage of a real flying saucer. And we become so desensitized by the internet as media, we don't even believe most of the news that's really happening. We don't even know if these high school shootings and college shootings are real or not. We don't even know, because our source is all electronic. It has taken over our brains. So what I'm urging people to do is these staffs will act as counters to the forces. Think of all the internet microwave towers as staffs, which are antennas. But they're all transmitting a matrix illusion. It's literally an illusion matrix into your brain. And you believe it now. So most of you aren't even going to believe what I'm telling you right now, but you're already hijacked. These ETs, the dark ETs, probably designed the internet and taught humans how to build the internet. And therefore it acts. See, this is a Hopi prophecy. This is one of the 3 Hopi prophecies, is there will be a spider's web that will engulf the earth. The internet is the web, the World Wide Web. The WWW is Worldwide Spider Web. It's got everybody. And therefore, the only way to get out is to get out of the frequencies that are manipulating your consciousness through the worldwide spider's web. And these harmonic numbers, which exist in the wavelength of the Great Pyramid from the top to the bottom, the Holy of Holies, the Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark, and there are multiple sacred sites in the world that have the exact same wavelengths. The Taj Mahal, the Chaco Canyon circles in New Mexico have the same wavelength as the capstone base of the Great Pyramid. I've done the math. So there were many civilizations that knew if you built a temple with the correct wavelength, if you were inside that temple, you would start to calibrate at the frequency of the light body, of your true ascension light body. And that's why the Prophet Muhammad equated the staff to the resurrection itself. That's what he told his followers. He said there will be very few who will have the staff on Resurrection Day. So I'm urging you that I'm making this available for people who don't have money to build your own, and start calibrating your nervous system at the correct frequency of your light body. And for those who have money for a better quality staff, which for a limited time will be $2,000, I urge you to write me, davidsereda@hotmail.com, to get the ebook, to see about the staff and see where you fit in. I want to make this available to everybody, and I see the more of these things we can get out there, we can counter these 150,000 microwave towers that have created this web. There's 150,000 microwave towers in the United States, and they're surrounding us, and nobody seems to care. And maybe that's because they've already been hijacked. Your brain is electrical. If you don't believe me, go get a voltmeter from the hardware store, turn it to millivolts, put your your left hand on the black and your right hand on the red, and look at the numbers jumping. You are electrical. And then go to resistance and calculate the resistance in your body. And you will receive any electrical system that has resistance has a magnetic field. You have resistance, therefore you have a magnetic field, which means you can passively receive frequencies and be manipulated. And so I'm warning people. I'm warning people over the world in these radio shows. And if you don't wake up, you have to be responsible for your soul. Your soul lives in this body. This body is an electrical system that can be calibrated at the correct or the incorrect frequencies. And the internet are incorrect frequencies. We know this.
Right. So when it comes to UFOs and people using consciousness to apparently fly these craft, allegedly, do these people even know, David, what they are doing or getting themselves involved with, in your opinion?
You mean which people? Humans that are flying these crafts?
Humans, yes.
Well, I know Melinda Leslie personally. I know that, Grant Cameron, I don't know what he said about this particular issue. There are people on this earth that in their behind sleep, they're having these experiences. They're not physically flying these crafts. It's happening in a holographic place where they're having these experiences, and it's so real to them. And very few humans have physically flown in a craft. But yes, your brain is the way it works. This is the way I believe it works, and we only have 10 minutes left. Is my theory about how these craft work is they reduce their mass, gravity equivalent, down to zero. So in Einstein's formula, energy is equal to mass times the speed of light squared. If your mass is zero, the energy to go the speed of light is zero. So the way the craft work is they cancel out the mass gravity to zero. And when the mass gravity of the whole ship weighs as much as a particle of light, your brain's voltage can tell it what to do. You can tell it to go left, right, forward, backwards. It will listen to you because your brain has these super weak signals at very low amplitude and moderate voltage. Very low voltage, because our voltage is in the millivolts, and a millivolt is 1/1000th of a volt. So the very weak current and voltage in the body, volts times current or amps is watts, can only affect a craft that has reduced its mass at or near zero. And that's why these craft can accelerate and stop on a dime and turn and not experience any G-forces to the structure of the craft or the pilot. And that can happen holographically in dream time. I think most of Melinda Leslie's cases are during dream time. There's very little evidence physically, except for the case. Now, even the implants. Let's look at implants, because these, once you reach this state as a physical being who can convert their body into a light body, you can insert a physical object in a person through their dream time. So it's physical. It shows up in there somewhere in their body, but it wasn't inserted physically through penetrating the skin, because they're able to get right inside of the organism in a parallel dimension of the physical body. Each of our bodies has a parallel dimension, and you can put the device, the tracking device, in the holographic part of the human, which is the electrical part of their body, but you don't have to slice the skin open to get it in. And so they're not. I know, because I've had the experience. Like, I had an experience during the years that I had the 3 meetings with Christ, where these very skinny looking grays had me strapped to a table. It was classic. They were coming at me with a syringe because they wanted to erase my memory of having met Jesus. They didn't want me teaching it. I did a backflip out of my astral body, And I got into my light body, and my light body was so radiant and powerful, it terrified the Greys. They went running in terror, and they didn't come anywhere near me. This is way before the movie The Matrix came out, about 3 years before The Matrix came out. And when I saw The Matrix, I went, oh my God, this is so much like my experience that I had years ago. And so that's where most of it's happening. These cases of Melinda Wesley's, and you look at John Mack, and you look at Roger Lear, and I've looked at, this new film that was done on Roger Lear. I watched the whole thing, and it's disturbing because they're able to insert something physical without physically taking you. They can do this from another dimension, and that is wicked. It's wicked because it's manipulative, and I have some pretty good ideas who these ETs are and who they work for. They're studying our species. They're very concerned about our evolution and how much we're not evolving correctly. So they are doing some, it's kind of like tagging whales, right? You're a marine biologist, you're tagging whales. And we think it's cruel, but we do the same thing to whales, and we do that same thing to dolphins, and we study them, and we put transmitters on dolphins' backs and whales' backs. They do the same thing to us. They're treating us the same way we treat dolphins and whales.
David, we have about 30 seconds left with you here again, my friend. Do me a favor, tell us about your website where people could go for more information about everything that you talked about tonight.
So the staffs are not available on the website at the price I'm telling people. So you can, the first people who get the staffs, you got to get it directly from me. David Sereda is Sereda at hotmail.com. David Sereda at hotmail.com. You can go to my website, davidsereda.net. And also, if you're interested in anything on the site and you don't have that kind of money, you can write me for a price reduction if you need help financially. I want to make things available to people, so don't think that the prices are locked. The prices help my research. I have a business partner who takes half of the money, so he's running that part of my business. I'm working mainly on the inventions, but the staff, I think, is the most profound new thing that I have. And so if you want to see pictures of it, which are not on the site yet, just write davidsereda at hotmail.com, and you can research a lot of what I'm doing on my YouTube channel, which is Spaceman99. You can Google on YouTube, just Google
Wonderful.
David Sereda, Spaceman99.
David,
Okay.
I gotta cut it off right there. Thanks so much. Rich Giordano is coming in hour number 3 to talk UFOs. We'll be back with more Space Out Radio and the Thought of the Dave right after this. Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio. or our website, including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on spacedoutradio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you are seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFO Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, hold on, there we go. For some reason, my microphone went dead here. There we go. All right. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Syzygy. Syzygy is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we're all over the place. We are live on Periscope.tv every Monday through Friday. Join us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show on Instagram. Follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for our archives. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read the Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Now, before we bring Rich Giordano in here, I just want to say a couple of things here about our guest. Now, David Sereda is a pretty good dude, okay? This was not what I expected for an interview tonight. Not going to lie. Kind of caught me off guard. But the one thing that I don't like is I don't like people trying to pawn a lot of expensive, unproven objects, products, or whatever on this show. Now, I probably should have cut him off a little bit sooner because, to me, it got a little bit out of hand. And, you know, we try and allow our guests to have freedom to what they want to say on here because, in the end, you know, I have my own opinions, you have your opinions, and, you know, a lot of times they are going to differ with what we say. However, I'm not a telethon. This show is not a telethon or an infomercial. And I probably should have cut that off a little bit earlier than what it was. I was quite frustrated by that. However, you know, I kept trying to get it back on track, and he kept sneaking it in there. And, you know, I will say this, you know, $2,000 for a staff to me sounds a little mind-blowing, especially when we have people who are listening who, you know, if they had $2,000, they might be able to fix their car or grab groceries, pay rent, and do a lot more important things than buy a staff. So I'm just going to drop it right there. I don't, you know, I'm not saying I recommend it. I'm not saying I don't. But I don't like my show being turned into an infomercial, and I'm very disappointed in that happening. So I do apologize to all of you for it, And, we will make sure that we look at this in the future for future broadcasts. So, that being said, we have Rich Giordano from the Paranormal Code coming on here, and his new little organization, which he calls GUFON, the Giordano UFO Network. Rich Giordano, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thank you. I was surprised you mentioned GUFON, man. Thank you.
I love it. I love it, man. I do.
GUFON was created by accident. It was about 10 years ago, and I go, I should have my own network. Why don't I be like MUFON? I would call it, I don't know, GUFON or something. I go, wait, GUFON, Giordano's UFO Network. Yeah, but then I thought, people consider it a goof, because of the way I am. They think I'd be goofing, but it's not. It's the opposite. It's completely serious, Giordano's UFO Network. And I don't know, man, just people put together a website for me, and I'm just ecstatic that we're getting that launched in the next week. But yeah, thanks for having me on, man. How was your con?
You know what? It was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, I couldn't have had it go any better than what it did. It was a huge step up and forward for Spaced Out Radio. It was too quick a turnaround for me. I probably needed a day to recover. I pushed myself way too hard yesterday, and I still feel quite tired over it, but the show must go on, and we got to make it happen. And, it's something where it was, I'll be honest with you, Rich, it was a very, very emotional Sunday for me. It really was. It felt like finally, after waiting forever, getting this great opportunity from Lori and Fenton to speak at the UFO Con, and then, doing the absolute best that I think I possibly could, and to have people literally mobbing me for attention and asking questions and sharing their stories afterwards. It was phenomenal, and I was so taken aback by it because I didn't expect the reaction that my speech would give, and I didn't even want to do the speech at all. It was about my own personal experiences since 2011. I wanted to do something else, but Lorian actually convinced me, and rightfully so. She said, Dave, beforehand, she said, Dave, I want you to talk about your experiences. You're incredible, and this is the way people are going to get to know you. And I said, okay, fine, I'll do that. Not a problem. And it just, Rich, everything that could have went right.
God, I love it. Good.
And it's so infrequent that happens. You know what I'm saying? It's so infrequent, in this field especially.
Not to get off of your experience there, because it's been such a huge topic, was anything about To the Stars Academy being said, or anybody have any comments about that?
It was huge. Everything
Really?
was about To the Stars. Melinda Leslie was talking about To the Stars. Grant Cameron, To the Stars. Stephen Bassett, To the Stars. Lawyer Daniel Sheehan was about To the Stars.
Wow.
And it was, the main focus of the topic was all about disclosure. And it was an absolute mind-blowing experience to listen to these phenomenal researchers get out there and discuss absolutely everything on the UFO front. And, it's funny because during my speech, I let the audience know, I am not a researcher. I'm just a dude who sits on a microphone and has had some pretty cool experiences. And to see the work that people like Grant Cameron or Steve Bassett or Melinda Leslie and others have put into their research, it's phenomenal. Now, I'm not saying that we all have to agree with it. I'm not saying that at all. But when you see that type of hard work and dedication in trying to make it happen, Rich, it was phenomenal. And I encourage everybody, to go to caufocon.com in a couple of days, where you can then view the videos. I think there is a purchase price on there, but it would be well worth it. Very much well worth it. And just so you know that every dollar raised by Lorian does not go in Lorian's pocket. It goes to cover her costs for the conferences that she puts on. So, I mean, it's phenomenal, and it was an amazing experience, and it's something that I will never forget. It's funny because I was having a conversation with Samantha Mowat earlier today about it. And she asked how it went, and she was a guest there last year speaking about her experiences. And one of the really cool parts was, I remember when I brought Samantha's picture up on my PowerPoint, and I asked the audience how many people were here last year to listen to Samantha speak. And, a number of people actually put their hands up, about 20 people out of about 130 that were there. And I said, if you remember the story about her and I in the forest where the ETs were, now I'm going to give you the other side of the story. So some of these people actually were lucky enough to get Samantha's take on it, as well as my take.
That's cool.
So, I mean, just everything worked, man. And I'm still not over it. I'm still emotionally exhausted because I was not prepared for the amount of love from people who had never heard us speak before, and especially my peers and the people that I look up to coming up to me and saying, "Wow, that was pretty spectacular." I mean, it's extremely humbling, extremely humbling.
That's why they keep having these cons and all sorts of things. It's because, like you said, you may not agree with the research a lot of these people do, or just agree with parts of it, but somewhere we piece these pieces together, like a puzzle, and maybe we can find out, the reason behind the aliens visiting, or the reason we have paranormal experiences, or whatever. So I always think, maybe not this year, but maybe a decade from now, somebody will have a story like yours, and then you put it together, and maybe something will make sense out of it. It's great that they do these. I'm so glad you had that experience. I know what you mean. It's like at the end of the night, you're still pumped up, but you feel like crying because you're so happy and you're reliving it. I love that. I'm glad you had that fun.
Well, it's funny because I needed a moment. The reaction caught me so off guard. Like, dude, I got a standing ovation. Wow. I've never had a standing ovation in my life.
Wow,
and it caught me off guard. Like after my presentation, I had a number of people come up to me, and they all surrounded me, and I'm trying to put away my computer, and my throat is a little bit dry and from talking that entire time. But it was, I finally made my way out about 20 minutes after my talk because they were starting the next presentation. And I went out in the hallway and I got surrounded again by people. And it's something that I am not used to. All of a sudden people are wanting to buy our posters and wanting me to sign them. And people had never heard of Spaced Out Radio before. Are now going to be tuning in, and it's just something, man, that I never expected. I never expected, that type of reaction. And I finally, about 2 hours after my speech, about an hour and a half after my speech, I finally had a moment to kind of to myself where I just kind of snuck outside, getting away from everybody, and just kind of choked up a little bit. It was one of those moments. So, it's something I will never forget.
Can you remember anything you heard that is new? that something maybe we haven't heard that you can discuss that you remember?
Are you talking about from my speech, or are you talking about from the speakers that I heard?
Yeah, it's my fault. From any of the speakers you heard, is there anything new or groundbreaking that you never heard of before?
You know what? Melinda Leslie did some incredible work. She put together a list, and in order to, and I'm going to bring Melinda on to describe this in May. I just got to get a hold of her here. But she put together this list of 55 people. And in order to qualify for the list, you had to have, she had this chart up, and you had to have a minimum of 3 stars on that chart in order to be on the list. And it came to the, and it came to all of the major players in the fields of ufology, people who've been tied to NIDS, the Skinwalker Ranch, and you know, Area 51, the Defense Department, the CIA, and she had it all categorized. It was absolutely amazing. And it came down to 55 people who were running behind the scenes what is happening. Like with the To the Stars campaign, we are only seeing the top 10, okay, right, which allegedly Tom DeLonge is still a part of for now. But it was the other 45 people who have had their hand in this, what they call the working group, which I'd never heard of before. And then it ties to what we've mentioned on the show a couple of times, the Aviary, which is a very old group when it comes to UFOs. And, you know, this is why it's just way too complicated for me to try and explain, and I know I would screw it up. So it's one of those things where I'm going to have to bring Melinda on to describe this list. And it was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, it's something that I am very, very impressed with. And some of the theories that were coming out of it, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool, you know, to say the least.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, those are great. I'm glad that you had a good time, man. That's awesome. How long were you there? You were there a week almost?
Well, I landed Friday morning at. I was up at 2:15 Friday morning. Made my way to Vancouver International Airport right after that. And then I took off. I landed in San Francisco about 9 o'clock in the morning, caught the shuttle to the hotel, got my room right away, which I was pretty lucky with. And, you know, and then just kind of went from there. So it was kind of like bam, bang, bang. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then yesterday, I mean, I was up until 2:15, you know, hanging out with people until 2:15, 2:20 yesterday morning. And by the time I decided to settle down a little bit, it was like 3 o'clock, and I had to be ready for the shuttle back to the airport at 4:10 in the morning. So I did not get much sleep. I slept, I don't even remember. And my favorite part of being on an airplane, I love the takeoff. And I slept right through that. Like I literally, how can I put this? I don't even remember the announcements, you know, the safety announcements. I literally sat in my seat, pulled my toque down over my eyes, or beanie for you Americans, over my eyes, and I went to sleep right there.
Would you call that beanie?
It's called a toque up here in Canada.
Oh, wow, I never heard that before.
Yeah.
How do you spell it?
TOQUE.
Wow. I never knew there was a word like that.
Yeah.
You Canadians are so weird.
Well, you know, you can also come on up and sit on my Chesterfield anytime you want.
Man, I love Canada. Been there a few times. Yeah, I love it there.
We seem to have some stalling going on Periscope. My computer that I'm running on right now seems to be stalling a little bit, so I do apologize. I hope the audio is coming through okay, but right now there's not much I can do about it without shutting down my computer. So I know the frustration. I know everything that's going on because you people want to be able to see it and listen at the same time. I do apologize, but that's just the way it's working right now. So here's one of the things, Rich, and I asked David Sereda about it, but I mean, he kind of went off on a major tangent there, and I don't think he really answered the question. One of the other things that was very, very intriguing was that the To the Stars, like when you go into the science of the To the Stars Academy, a lot of these researchers are trying to learn about the consciousness that is happening between these UFOs and people who have allegedly flown these craft, number one, and saying, well, how do you know how to fly it? Well, it all came off of collective type consciousness, so it's something that I'm very intrigued in your UFO studies, and I realize you've done a lot of taping and recording of these craft. Have you ever thought, Richard, about the consciousness aspect of these craft flying?
Yeah, after being into the field, after the first year, I started learning a lot more than I ever thought I would. And I used to tell my ex or my wife at the time, I'm like, I'm out there every night because I was doing it 10, 12 hours a day, even longer. I go, why is it I only see one dot, one little thing? All I see is a dot here, a dot there. And for all I know, it could be a balloon, a plane, who knows? And I go, you know what? I'm done with it. I go, why don't they show me a fleet? Why can't they show me 2 or 3 or form a constellation or show me something that is intelligent, and because I used to go out there and I used to try to mentally talk to them and make them appear. And I never had the feeling they were reaching out to me. I had strange dreams, of course, of aliens and being in a UFO. But that very next night, and then I noticed it started happening more. But the very next night, I when I told my wife that night, I said, I'm done. I'm done looking for UFOs. I'm just done with it. It's kind of just wearing me out, man. The next day, I go outside. I accidentally look up out of habit. Didn't have my camera in my hand. Matter of fact, it was Sunday. I think it was December 12th. And I look up and I see a white dot. And it was pretty bright, more than normal. And then all of a sudden I see other dots appearing, like coming out of like hyperspace you see in the Star Wars or Star Trek movies. They come out of hyperspace and they're there, like voot, 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 and they were popping up. So I'm like, do I run to get the camera? Do I stay here and watch it? So I ran and got the camera with the tripod. As I'm hooking it up, I'm seeing these orbs appearing. That's what I was calling them at the time. And then I looked at the video after 25-minute sighting. I had my wife with me. She looked at it through the lens and everything. And when I looked at it, they showed me Orion's belt, the Little Dipper, a question mark. So what do you think that means? They were showing me exactly what I asked for them to show me the night before. I had a fleet sighting the very next day. So they showed me more than one object. They showed me a constellation, 2 of them, and a question mark that is like, who are you to question us type of deal? So I said, no way, I can't believe it. And I didn't think of it at the time until my friend goes, dude, they are talking to you or listening to you. And I said, the weird thing was, Mike, my friend, I go, I didn't even have any intentions of going outside and looking up, but I did out of habit, or maybe I was subconsciously spoken to. Now, I've never heard any alien voices. I never felt like they were talking to me. Nothing. No psychic connection, and I tried. I meditated in fields, in the middle of football fields, soccer fields, no matter where I can be in the middle of nowhere so they can abduct me, because that's what I wanted. I would go out there and meditate as walking my dog. I'd sit there anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour. Sometimes I'd fall asleep. But the weird thing is, every time I told my wife, I go, I'm done. I hate ufology. I hate that I can't capture an alien on video, all sorts of hateful stuff. The next day, as if they were listening to me, I'd catch something on video or something interesting would happen to me. Very strange. So that way, I guess they were communicating, but I still don't believe it, Dave. But it's happened so many times I can't deny that it's happening. But I don't hear anything. I don't talk to anyone. I don't have a conversation. I don't get how these people can do that because I've been meditating for a long time. And I never have that physical or mental connection. Maybe I do and I don't know how to read it, or maybe I'm not ready. I don't know. But I believe that it's true. I believe if there is a connection, they can do it, maybe force you to do things you don't realize, maybe subconsciously showing you things or telling you things. Making decisions for you? I don't know. I'm still looking into it. So, the research never ends, Dave.
No, and I fully agree with you. The research never ends, but I mean, it is something that, is very intriguing because we do have a lot of people and from what that have claimed to have flown these craft. And like I said, I was talking to Samantha Mowat. It even happened to her once. And she didn't know what she was doing, but the whole point that I'm getting at here is apparently, according to what I learned this weekend at the UFO Con, this is a major piece of study for people like Jim Semivan and the To the Stars crew and Robert Bigelow, who has a very high interest in people who have flown craft. I'm wondering, obviously when you get people like this involved, they obviously would like to figure it out so that way they can, find a way to weaponize it, because it all comes down to weaponizing, never anything to help mankind, or pardon me, people kind,
Don't do that.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that with a passion. I had to get that in there. But the whole point is, if that's the way the research is going, that's a big step, my friend. That's a big step.
See, that's what bothers me. Now because they're doing it, now it's going to be something of importance. Maybe they know something we don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. But all I know is I can't talk to them. I've never flown a ship. I've never even had any. And you'd think they would pick me since I'm out there doing it. But I don't know. I don't believe it, Dave. I have a very hard time believing that stuff. That they're out there flying ships around, going to Venus, wherever they're going, Mars. I don't buy it. I just can't.
Well, if I happen to take over Carl's ship one day, I'm gonna come. I'm gonna come pick you up.
Carl, that's his name. I thought it was Bob for some reason. Yeah, Carl. Yeah, you have to pick me up.
Yeah, I will come get you, and then we'll go cruising the universe, looking for some hot alien chicks.
Do you think that maybe it is a real important research, that it's so important that so many people are saying it, they think it's real?
I think.
Do you think it is? I mean, what do you think?
I think there is something to it.
Really?
I mean, how else do you explain? And sure, I'm sure there's other theories of physics that are behind it that are way above my amateur level of knowledge when it comes to physics. But I think there may be something to it. Like when you see one of these craft that is, say, flying at Mach 7 or Mach 10, down across the sky, and then all of a sudden, without even hitting the brakes, shoots a 90-degree angle.
Right, I understand that, but really, have you seen those videos? I haven't. I've seen fakes, but I haven't seen any proof of that.
Yes, but everything's fake to you. Everything's fake to you. My
everything.
My hair is fake to you.
No.
Hey,
never say that.
give me 1 second here, my friend. I just want to give an update because a few people have asked tonight. Last night, Butch Witkowski had to cancel his monthly show, Strange Days, just a few minutes before we went to air because he got like really, really gravely sick. And I did call Butch today, and he sent me a message back, and we're going to talk tomorrow. He did end up going to the hospital last night trying to figure out what was going on, and he was diagnosed with a severe case of exhaustion from a big move that he and his wife just did. And Butch, I guess, was doing a lot of running around to and from his old home to his new home and doing all the packing, the unpacking, and you know, between that and the radio show and the research that he was doing, everything just kind of caught up with him. So he is resting today and will be resting for a few days to get healthy again. And from there, he'll be back next month, but he just needed to get some rest. So please, if you want, do me a favor, go on to his YouTube channel, or not his YouTube channel, sorry, his Facebook page. Send him a message, and go from there. I think he would really enjoy that.
He's one of the good guys.
He really is. He really is. That kind of scared me last night. It really did.
Yeah, I know. You know, I believe in a lot of things, Dave. I really do. But some of the things that are being claimed, I just don't. If it's not happening to me, it's not happening. Especially the telepathy stuff and mind reading and consciousness and all that stuff. I don't buy it. Mm-hmm. It's very hard for you to believe.
It is very, very hard to believe. You know, and Amy Martin right now on Periscope is making fun of the wings that I'm growing on my hair right now. She's like, "Sup, Curly? Sup, Curly?
Your hair grows so fast."
Oh, dude, it's. She's like, "Dave's following my hair trends." That's because you're so awesome, Amy Martin. That's because you're so awesome. So, anyhow, getting back to the real topic, I think there could be something to this. Because, I mean, how do you take an individual, and there are literally hundreds, if not a few thousand people, maybe more, Rich, who have claimed, and I realize it's a far push for many of us to try and get there, all right? But for the people out there who say they have flown a craft, and have all come back saying it happens on the consciousness because there really is no stick shift. You know, there really is no stick or steering wheel. And for them, to all kind of have stories that correlate one way or another. There's a word that I don't use very often, correlate. You know, I think, you know, we have to, you know, take their word for it.
Nah, I believe here's the deal. People have dreams every night, and many of us have had the same dream, but don't have the same experiences. We've all had the dreams that we're falling, we can fly, certain things that you can't do when you're awake, right? You've had them, I've had them, we've all had them. Doesn't mean they really happened. And I believe people who are into this research I've had the dreams. I've had several dreams, identical nights in a row, where I've been in a UFO. And it felt real, man. But I know it wasn't. It was a dream, and that's because I'm interested in it. So other people have these dreams, read the same stories, see the same movies. Don't you think it's possible? Just like their falling and flying dreams, they're going to dream the same stuff, just a little different. So I believe they're dreaming, and I believe they're taking those dreams and making them a real story because it's cool right now. Because they can do it because it sounds real. They look credible, sound credible. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. I've been trying it for years. I've been trying to do the astral thing. It doesn't work. I can feel like I'm floating, but I ain't going anywhere. I'm just imagining it in my mind. So I don't... And I'm not the only one. There's real people out there like James Randi, and there's sleep clinics that have done research on these dreams. People haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah, but James Randi, and God love him for the great work that he has done on so many levels. But, I mean, there comes a time where it's easy to be a skeptic like James Randi and put up $1 million because no matter what, you can deny it happened. There's no way.
I understand. But I mean, know what you mean.
I mean, there's I'm all for skepticism. Trust me, I am all for skepticism. But at some point, there's a huge difference between a skeptic and just a complete five senses non-believer. And that's what James Randi is.
Yeah, I get, five senses. Yeah, I get that's a good way to put it. I understand that. But don't you think to have real data, you have to have something to back it up with? I mean, we can't just go by people's words. And that's what we're doing. I don't know. Is there data one way or the other? What, brainwaves? That's just because you're thinking of something exciting.
Apparently, Robert Bigelow and his crew are looking into it.
Yeah, they're looking into it.
Right.
All right.
And, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we also have to realize, too, I mean, it's all theory right now.
Okay.
And they are looking into the theory of it. They believe there could be something there. They're looking into the theory of it, and science is about proving or disproving theory. I think where we in this field have just become too fickle is we tend to use opinion as scientific theory. And I've said that hundreds of times on this show, and that's where it gets a little bit crazy. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I think this field, more than any others, is scrutinized, as it should be.
Well, if they're looking into it, I must have misunderstood. I thought they believed in it, but they must believe in it because there's so many people, thousands of people having these experiences, so they're actually going to do some real science on this, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, thank God.
Yes.
Okay, that I'm all for, yeah. I would love to be there for that. I would love to do that research. That'd be awesome. It would be. Well, hopefully they find something real.
That's what they believe is happening, is that a lot of these craft are being flowed by consciousness. That's why they are in the process of trying to gather, like when Robert Bigelow bought all of MUFON's, he specifically wanted, or MUFON's files, he only wanted the files of people who had been on craft and flown craft.
Okay.
That's his big one right there. And, we can be as skeptical as we want. But when you have billions of dollars in the bank and the access to buy whatever research you want, there's going to be something there. If you want to look into it or study it, you have the ability to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like you or me or 98% of the people in ufology don't have the ability to do it. He does. And he thinks, from what Melinda and Grant and others said this weekend, he strongly believes that in order to solve this entire UFO phenomenon, you have to start getting back to the experiences. You have to start getting into the science behind it. Right? So that's what he's trying to do.
Well, there is technology already that people can think of something, right? And people like paraplegics, they can actually type letters. I know they can do it with their eyes, but I thought I heard where they can think of a letter and it can be typed into the screen. So I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I think we're that close. So imagine 100 years from now where we would be if they did some real research here. It's probably a reality, don't you think? I think that would be a reality. You think of moving something and it moves.
Could very well be.
So why isn't that? Yeah, because if they're thousands of years in advance, that's a long time to have that much technology to work with. Think where we've been in the last 60 years. It's crazy. So
we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I must have misunderstood what you meant. Well, yeah, that's cool.
That's all right. It's the stubble stash you have going right now.
It's going good, Dave. Oh, I love the way it looks right now.
Well, we're gonna need a photographic update on that. I need proof. That it's happening.
I have to wait until after Friday. I'm getting all new teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of my teeth is being ripped out of my head this Thursday.
Tell me you're going to get a gold grill in front. I want to see a gold grill.
I'm going to have little tiny UFOs on my front two teeth.
Nice. And get Goof On put on the front of your teeth.
I would love that, man. If I had that money, that billionaire money, I would do something silly like that, but interchangeable, like put different letters in each week. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it, but I am. But I won't be able to talk for about a few days, so I won't be doing any shows. So I wanted to ask you, too, who was it that blew you away? Any stories that you could tell us from the con? Anything really that was like, wow, I can't believe I just heard that?
That is such a good question, but I'm going to give you the honest answer here. I was so overwhelmed with everything, Rich, that I really didn't have time to follow up with everything.
Oh, okay. It's like a blur.
Yeah. It was a complete, like I would sit in and then somebody would grab my attention, and it would go from there, and it was just very difficult to figure out. Very difficult to figure out.
Oh, okay. I got you, yeah.
So it was, I'm not trying to dodge the question because I think it's a great question. But the entire process for this UFO conference, of course, was disclosure, and mainly about the impetus of what is going to happen down the road. And there, everybody has a differing opinion of what's going on, and the researchers who were there doing the work, how do you argue with it? How do you argue with it when they are the ones who are, doing the tough stuff?
How do you argue with it? Because they've been saying disclosure is going to happen for 15 years, and it hasn't.
Well, that's Steve Bassett. Steve Bassett. This is a guy who's been claiming disclosure for once every 6 months for the last 28 years. And Steve finally, and I know he's said this many a times, but he finally believes that it's here. And he believes that it's right around the corner. Apparently, To the Stars in their next update is going to have they're going to bring out a piece of metal that is supposed to be from an alien craft. It's layered with 80 different pieces of metal, and apparently they are going to show off how it can levitate on its own.
I think we've seen that before in a documentary, I think, right? I think that's been around.
Don't know. I haven't seen it.
Huh. Well, I'm not sure. There was a guy, I thought, in Canada who had that one that was like dripped out of like molten lava, and then he went to go pick it up in the field, and it looks like a long tooth. Have you ever seen that one? And they did an examination on it. Didn't you have him on your show, I thought?
No idea.
I thought you did. Well, anyway, that one is layered too with different metals and really tightly compressed. Yeah, I don't know. There's some weird metals out there. So that's exciting. I can't wait to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah.
If To the Stars has. That's going to be cool as hell.
Yeah, that's apparently going to be coming here very, very quickly. And, the main thing that they really, really wanted to do and really wanted to tell people is that, be careful with the To the Stars. Yes, they're bringing out great information. Yes, they are bringing out some high quality stuff that nobody has brought out before. And it's all being filtered through the Pentagon, even though the Pentagon is denying it. But be careful with everything because they are controlling the message. They are controlling what we're allowed to see and what we're not allowed to see. They're controlling the media. They're controlling everything. And when one particular group has full control of everything and billions of dollars backing behind them, it's dangerous.
I talked about this the other night on DeLong. The way he acted on the Joe Rogan podcast, I thought this through pretty well. I think the guy did that on purpose. I think he acted that way because I don't think he's ever had so much hate mail, so many people talking about him this way. I don't think he's used to it. I don't think he can handle it. And I think he went on that acting that way. Although he seemed pretty good at it, natural. But I think maybe he purposely did it to see what he can get away with. And he didn't care. I think the way he acted was way out of the norm for somebody who's claiming that he's working with high officials and, and all that other
Well,
stuff.
there's a reason why, though, that he is no longer the front man. But
Right.
nonetheless, we're going to get to the thought of the Dave right now.
Oh, good. Right on. Dun, dun.
Love this song. Love this song. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where during the day I put a question out on Facebook and Twitter and then read your responses on the air. So today's Thought of the Dave is this. What do you think is being hidden at air right in front of people?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I believe there is stuff there. Let's get to some reaction. Let's get to Venny here. She says, the Groom Lake portion at Area 51 used to be where they tested propulsion and flew the captured foreign craft, as well as began to build propulsion discs, which is what most people believe are alien ships. My father worked at Groom Lake for 25 years, retired in 2010. Also on Twitter, Julian says, ha 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 ha. The $1 million question should be, what do you think is under Area 51? And like you said, I think, if you take David Sereda, not David Sereda, the rocket guy. David Adair.
Adair.
I mean, they go something like 24 to 30 stories underground, and every story has, major aircraft in it. It's crazy. It's crazy. Do I believe that? I don't know. But it is fun to believe. Let's get to Graham on Twitter. The temporal field emitters that are nonlinear field resonators and produce images of history of the past mostly, but some see into the future, and they spend all day monitoring them. That's what's happening there. Wow. Okay. Okay.
Kind of like the movie They Live.
Could be. Let's see what's happening on Facebook with this topic. Because we got a plethora of responses here, Rich.
Good.
Plethora. So, 1 second here. They're loading up very slowly. Matthew says, advanced aircraft of human origin. And I think they are hiding, the SR-75 or whatever number we're up to, the SR-70 or 91, whatever the program is. By the way, a lot of secretive aircraft hiding there just doesn't seem smart.
Well, that's the smart thing to do, is to break it up in case something catastrophic happens. They don't lose it all. Yeah.
True.
Who knows?
All right. Chris says, an undercover operation between humans and aliens, not necessarily bad, but working together on advanced technology, sharing information. I like that answer. You?
Yeah. It's awesome. Very good.
That's the stubble stash coming through with that impressive rebuttal right there. Cisco states, I am getting it is a distraction, mostly a red herring. Hey, look over here. While everything is really going on over there. If there is anything they don't want us to know, it has probably been moved by now, or moved lower. I think a lot of what is happening at Area 51 is in those bunkers or carved into the sides. Because, in the end, everybody has a pretty good satellite right now, and if it's from a different country, it will fly over Area 51 at least twice a day.
Yeah, they can see things that are being moved, possibly, but they're not going to move them during the day, and I don't know. I still think there's nothing there anymore. And if it is, I don't know. I mean, it's got to be way underground.
I agree. All right, Carolyn says, I'd love to have a look and find out. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Chris says, all kinds of technology, aircraft, and other platforms, obviously. Dawn states, I live not too far from there. You can't get anywhere close to it. Vehicles will come out almost out of nowhere to stop and question you immediately. It's surrounded by an Air Force base, 2 national forests, a national security site, and a wildlife refuge. I imagine there's a variety of things there. That is true. They don't want us to know, Rich. They don't want us to know. Let's get to Tim's response. He says, research and advanced technologies. Just like the 50s, Bob Lazar has a convincing case that there is more. Yes, his credibility has been attacked, but there is evidence that that has been tampered with. Edward Teller recommended him, and yes, he did work at Los Alamos, according to documents and news articles. John Bankhead says the Black Triangle UFOs are hidden there. That could be. They need to be parked somewhere. Let's see. Michelle says... Go ahead, Rich.
Oh, I was going to ask, was George Knapp at this con?
No, he wasn't.
I thought I saw his name. Okay. Yeah, because I heard that Bob Lazar is finishing up or just started a documentary about his experience.
Yeah, Jeremy... Lockyer Kenyon Corbell is doing a documentary movie on him.
Good.
And the To the Stars Academy is going to be writing a book, an autobiography on Lazar.
Good.
Very interesting. All right, let's get to Joe's answer here. The map to Area 52 is hidden in Area 51. Tony says alien bodies. Bridget says, right about now, you can hide me in the backyard for all I care. Well, that's kind of negative, Bridget. The ingredients to McDonald's secret sauce, says Kelly, and KFC special herbs and spices. It's probably a good place to let this one end, my friend.
Probably right. Yeah.
We'll add one more. Jennifer states, we can find Waldo there.
You would never find him there.
No.
No way.
No. Reminds me of the picture on the internet where the guy is dressed as Waldo and the lady is walking with a lady who looks like Carmen Sandiego. Found them both in one photo.
Right.
Fantastic.
And I think Waldo's wearing one of those Canadian caps. What do they call them? A douche?
It's a toque, man. It's a toque.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Rich Giordano from the Paranormal Code, thank you so much for coming on hour number 3, my friend.
It was fun, man. Thanks for having me
Totally
back on.
Fun. Totally fun.
Back.
You hold on a second here. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Tomorrow night on the program, John Tenney is going to join us. Yes, the paranormal weirdo is back. We're going to talk about his paranormal experiences the last couple of months since he's been on, what he has been working on. As you know, he is pretty darn fantastic when it comes to this show, and he loves doing it. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spaceoutradio.com. We also want to thank David Sereda for coming on in hours 1 and 2 to tell us all about staffs. I think we had enough staff talk for a while. Nonetheless, thank you, David Sereda, for making time for the Spaced Out Radio audience. Also, want to say thank you to everybody rocking out at home with us in their work facilities, in their vehicles. Everybody on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, on Periscope, because we love broadcasting on Periscope, on Spreaker, and the veterans in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for sharing this show. And thank you for being supportive of what we do. Because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. See you tomorrow night, everyone. Good night.